Hello, friends. I've seen a lot of questions with the theme of my game doesn't run because it says files are missing. I decided I would make this brief, or at least I hope brief, tutorial to show you how to hand build a game's ROM set from a file you get at what we euphemistically call the usual places, and files you should already have as part of your existing game archive. In my example here for this video, I already have the full ROM set from my usual sources for MAME version 0.235. But new games are already being added as the MAME devs progress towards version 0.236. Building by hand is actually very simple. I prefer for myself the non-merged set type. So that means every file required to have the game run in MAME is all to be found in one zip file. Exceptions to that, because there is always exceptions, are that some games will still have two zip files if there is a BIOS required to have the game run, and some will also have a CHD file as well. But a majority of the games will be a single zip file. I'm going to go through this relatively slowly, so it's hopefully a bit easier to follow along. Once you've done it a couple times, it becomes rather quick. Now, why do the games we get from the usual sources not always have all the files required? Well, it's usually because each file only has the files unique to that game already in the zip file. The other files you require are, in a majority of cases, already in your existing archive of games. However, sometimes the files are not in the parent set of the game, but are in what we like to call brother sets. If the game's files are in the parent set, MAME will happily check there, find them, and run the game. But it does not check the so-called brother sets, so it will not run the game and complain at you that files are missing. That's why I like having the non-merged file set, because when it's running, everything is in one place. Okay, so let's get started. First off, let's run MAME from the command line and get a text file with a list of all the games knows about, along with their associated files that are required to make it run. This list will also have hash values for each file to make searching for individual files you might need much easier. You do this by running the command MAME and using the switch list ROMs to create it. You then have MAME send this information to a file instead of just sending it to the screen. You do this by using the piping command and the file name you want the text file to have. I like to just use the switch name for the file. So in this case, I'll type MAME -list ROMs and pipe it to listrOMs.txt. Once this step is done, you probably won't need to repeat it for a good long while, because even though games are added often, the likelihood of new games that aren't already clones of other games in your list are fairly low. Now, you'll need to load this file up in a text editor so you can search with it. Don't use Notepad for this. The file you created is huge, and Notepad will likely choke on it and hang. You're better off using a program like Notepad++ or something similar. So my example game today is a new game, a new Korean clone of a Japanese game that I can't hope to actually pronounce right. But my horrible attempt at pronouncing it is Oryup Young Mai E Young Co. It's a game of mini games. To see what the zip file name is, we need to run MAME once to get the name of the zip file we'll be using. So with MAME running, we'll search for the game in the listings. If you look down at the bottom, you'll see the name of the zip file is sug yok. .zip. After taking down the zip file name, I close MAME and then I get the file I need from the usual places and open it up. As you can probably see, great, lost my spot. The file has only 5 of the 7 files I need to run. The remainder are files I expect I'll already have in my archive of games. A note I should add at this point is that if you don't have the files, we will search up from here on out. Your games archive is most likely out of date and you'll need newer files. This is also why I don't especially like what people call curated sets, because they may eventually have issues with this. Anyways, back at the command line, we'll run MAME again. You get a list of files that MAME expects and requires to run the game. To do this, we'll run MAME and add the zip file name and the switch list ROMs to the command. This will get MAME to show you what files are required and their hash values to make searching for them easier. I copy this information into a new text file so it's easier to refer to later. Let's take a moment and set up the File Explorer windows we'll need to transfer files. I usually have 3 windows open, one for the file I found at the usual place, one that I have open at the folder I have existing games in, and one that I use to transfer files from one zip file to another. You'll need the transfer one because even though Windows can copy files in and out of zip files, it can't do it from one zip file directly to another. So you need to have a transition folder. Next, because I'm old and easily distracted, I go through that list and get rid of the ones I already have by comparing the file names to what's already in the zip file. is the 2. So you can then take the SHA1 values for each file not already in the zip file that you have for the game and search for them in the ROM list text file you created earlier. In my case, for this game, I'm missing these 2 files. Alright, now that we know what we're looking for and we have our windows open as we need them, you open the text file you created earlier, you open the list roms.txt in the text editor so you can do your searching. Go back to the bit of text you copied earlier and copy the SHA1 value of the first file you're missing. Now move over to the list roms.txt file and search for that SHA1 value. When it comes up, you'll see that it shows the value and shows that value and the file it's associated with. You scroll up a bit, and you can see which zip file has that particular file in it. Now go to the folder that has your existing games in it and find the zip file with that, and find the zip file that the file you want is in, and copy that file over to your transfer folder and rename it to the file name that MAME showed you earlier. In this case, the existing file we have is called SB020.16F, and we want it to be called 27C512.16F. I'm going to throw in a bit of explanation of some of the files here. Sometimes the files you're looking for are named differently than what MAME tells you the file should be called. Technically, the file name itself doesn't matter, only the hash of the file does. You don't necessarily need to rename the files like I do, but the method I use to keep my games archive up to date works better if I do. You need to do this for each file you need and are missing. Once you have all your missing files all set up in the transfer folder, you can simply cut them from the transfer folder and paste them into the zip for the new game. One additional step I do is called torrent zipping. This isn't necessary unless you maintain your games the way I do, so I'll only mention it here and show you, just as it's just a drag and drop procedure using this program. Now you're done. If you run MAME, you'll find you can now select the game in question and it will run. For watching.